Hi, everyone. Welcome to Waste 360's Nothing Wasted podcast. On every episode, we invite the most interesting people in waste, recycling, and organics to sit down with us and chat candidly about their thoughts, their work, this unique industry, and so much more. So thanks for listening and enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. This is Liz Bothwell from Waste 360 with Kailey Donewald, founder of Sacred Serve, which is a female-founded brand that's launching the first recyclable and compostable ice cream carton. Welcome, and thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz.
So please tell me more about Sacred Serve's story and how you got here.
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually was originally working in consulting when I first graduated college, and it really came about because I did some traveling and was feeling rather unhealthy and essentially started a 2-week kind of raw food cleanse. So really just fresh fruits and vegetables for 2 weeks. It was a little cleanse I was doing when I was traveling through Indonesia. And within that amount of time, just 2 weeks, my body completely healed itself of both asthma and allergies that I had really suffered with since early childhood. And every doctor told me this was just the way I was born, and I would need medicine for the rest of my life. So to realize that just by changing my diet for 2 weeks could have such a profound impact on my health overall really made me start to question the food being offered to consumers, and could I do something to really challenge that?
So this is really personal for you.
Yes. Yeah, it's extremely personal. And I think, I was just very disillusioned by what I saw in the marketplace at that time, because really I grew up eating the standard American diet. No real difference between what I was eating and my friends, but it was dairy and processed foods and refined oils and things that are just found so commonly in a lot of the foods that we're buying these days. And so to really recognize that by eliminating a lot of those things, my body could have a chance to really heal itself was really powerful. And I think it was pretty sad to realize that I wasn't born with these conditions, but it really was kind of giving myself these conditions my whole life through the food choices I was making without even realizing it. And even worse, no doctor ever asked about my diet. It was only a conversation of what medicines I would need to be on for the rest of my life.
Oh, it's so true. And I think a lot of people are there with you, and we're just more aware now, and we question things like our diet and nutrition and try to heal that way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think, after that point, when I realized all of this, I wound up going back to school for nutrition to really learn and understand what food can do for us and, just the sensitivities that we're having and why we're seeing more of that these days than ever before, and what's going on with our food system behind the scenes and how that's playing kind of hand in hand with the medical system and what's being offered to us. And it's all just, reactionary treatment instead of that preventative medicine. And the preventative medicine angle was something that I really saw and started to explore on some of my travels to places like India, where they just have a whole different type of system. And it really does look to prevent as opposed to just treat.
Amazing. Well, what a journey, and thankfully for us, it brought you to creating some yummy goodness that's actually good for us. So I wanted to hear about you launching the first recyclable and compostable carton. That's amazing. And I love a quote that I read recently from your company that said, "While the world loves ice cream, recycling centers do not." And that is so true. So please tell me more about this innovative new carton and the process that you went through to get it to market.
Yeah, so when I first started this company 4 years ago, it was when I even realized that ice cream pints are not currently recyclable. And so I was really wanting to come to market with this product that challenged the landscape of food being offered to consumers, really from a nutritional standpoint. But I think I realized very quickly that sustainability and packaging would be a large piece of that conversation as well. And so when I looked to launch our first product, there really were no options available to me that were recyclable. So that was my biggest concern, was trying to figure out how can I bring something to market that's not going to end up in landfills? And it was challenging both to find a solution as well as find someone willing to work with us at such small scale, which I think a lot of emerging brands really struggle with across the board. So we originally came to market with a post-consumer recycled paperboard, which was the best we could do at the time. And I guess just for people listening, the reason that you can't recycle ice cream pints is because they contain a plastic lining on the inside that prevents it from leaking. So it's kind of this moisture barrier. And until this point in time, that has always been plastic. And so that's the piece. And people will say, well, you can recycle plastic, you can recycle paperboard, so what's the problem? But the issue is that when they're combined together, you really need some high-tech equipment to pull them apart and be able to recycle them. And that's just not something that the infrastructure has in place at this point in time. So anything with those two combined is actually rendered trash. And so it took us about 4 years of searching to finally find a company out of the UK, and their name is DeliPack. And they have been working for the last 8 years on this innovation to really make that inner eco coating plastic free. And so what they've developed is really this water-based moisture barrier that they're applying in a relatively proprietary way to this paperboard that makes it that really strong, resistant moisture barrier, just like plastic, but it's 100% plastic free.
Wow, that's amazing. And yes, I mean, what you said about the plastic liner and also contamination has always been an issue, right?
Right.
So what were some of the challenges? I mean, 4 years, I give you so much credit, and I just can't believe that you, being a smaller brand, had to push this to market. So please talk about the challenges that you encountered.
Yeah, I think for one, it really didn't seem like this technology existed until very recently. So when I first started doing this searching, what I was really finding was just more plant-based solutions that maybe reduce the amount of plastic in there but still contain plastic, so it's always going to be trash. And so that was really the issue. It was both not having the technology exist as well as what did exist wasn't fully there, and even if we wanted to get close, those manufacturers weren't really willing to work with us at such small scale. So what we were doing was we introduced this really unique shaped box, kind of like a takeout style box with a full top lid. And the reason we did that is in part because it uses less material. So it was a little bit more of a sustainable option with the reduction of that whole extra lid. But with that, we were working with a very specific manufacturer. And so we would have to import this sustainable paperboard to that manufacturer and have this cup redesigned. And so at this volume that we were running, they were just unwilling to make those kinds of upgrades for us. So eventually, we went head down, worked for 3 years to really get our sales up and our volumes up. And that's the point in time that we were fortunately connected with another supplier here in the U.S. who has a relationship with this company out in the U.K. And they said, we'll work with you, we'll redesign this box, and we'll do it on this, fully sustainable paperboard. But that was a conversation that I certainly wouldn't have been able to have or support 3-4 years ago because our volumes would have been too small to even work with someone like this. So I think that's what makes it really tough for these emerging brands who have these really lofty mission-based goals for the environment and for our health. Starting out, we're the ones that are willing to jump through all these hoops and pay premiums to get this, but often it's not even available to us because we're just starting out and people don't want to take a chance on us.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm glad you followed through on that. And then how was the testing end of that in terms of, making sure it is actually recyclable and it is compostable? Because that's a big part.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that we're starting to see some greenwashing going on in our industry right now with different people claiming that they have recyclable cartons and whatnot. And that's the biggest piece that they don't have is the credentials and testing behind all of this. And it's a very clear reason as to why, because all of this testing costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so we are very fortunate that DeliPack out of the UK has done and completed all of this testing from, being certified 100% plastic free down to the compostable and biodegradable, aspect of this packaging. So we have all of that has been given to us, and we can now share that and prove that these really are compostable right at home, which is something that is very new and unique.
Oh, that's fantastic. So why aren't more companies making the switch to more sustainable options like this? Is it strictly cost?
Yeah, I think it's cost, and there's probably a time element of just, the time involved in switching out and upgrading all of these units and putting people on it. I really think, though, that at the end of the day, it is probably a cost factor. And I can just only imagine the logistics. For us, it's easy to move on this because we're so small and nimble and buy relatively small quantities. But if you think about some of these larger brands, I don't know how long they sit on packaging inventory, but they could be buying for a year or two out. And so to either trash their existing inventory and upgrade to something new, or on the other side, it's just going to take them a lot longer to start to implement these sustainable changes. And so I think, like the big company, like Ben and Jerry's, they're working with a solution that uses less plastic, right? But I'm sure that they're having these conversations right now. And I'm hopeful that a lot of the larger guys will start to move on this. I think we're just looking at that being months or potentially years out, just based on how big their operations are.
Oh, I bet. I hadn't even thought of how far in advance they order packaging. That's such a great point.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's so many nuances that these companies are dealing with, but really at the end of the day, people always ask us, like, how do you think we can get these larger companies to take action? And the consumer is so powerful. I mean, without the consumer, these brands have nothing. And so the louder consumers are, and more than anything, voting with your dollars is the most helpful thing you can do. And you can do that really by supporting the companies that are already taking these initiatives, because what that does is it shows these larger brands, this smaller company is taking market share from us, and why is that? And if they think it's because, this smaller company has sustainable packaging, well, then they're going to enact that a lot sooner than they would have normally, because they're realizing it's a competitive advantage and consumers are really wanting this.
Absolutely. That's great advice. So to that point, are you finding that more folks are reaching out to you now that you've done it and hoping to follow your path?
Yeah, and it's definitely been a lot of smaller emerging brands that are super excited about this innovation and wanting to adopt it themselves. But we're seeing great consumer feedback, and I would say more than anything, and it's really like the gatekeepers in our industry are actually the retail buyers who decide what goes on shelf. And so we're seeing more success in our conversations with them, kind of sharing that really we're the first and only ones that have this solution, because all of these retailers have green initiatives, and they're really focused on what their consumer wants to see. And so specifically in the natural foods channel, this is very in line with consumer desires. And so that's going to be our most important push at this time, is kind of winning over those retail buyers and getting more placement so that consumers really have a better choice.
Absolutely. And I know for you, it goes beyond sustainable packaging. I mean, your entire company is focused on being a sustainable business between your ingredients and now your packaging and your mission. Was that intentional when you first started out, or is it just part of who you are and then it translated into your business?
Yeah, no, it's always been very intentional. And so really my reason for starting this company up front is when I had this, healing through food, really a product-based business wasn't even on my radar. I went back to school for nutrition and became, a health practitioner, where I was working one-on-one with individuals to adopt healthier diets. And what I saw during my year of that practice was we were having such tremendous results. I mean, people were really weaning themselves off medicine and feeling so much better physically, but also from a mental health perspective, and just how powerful it is to really rebalance the gut. And I just sort of felt like, this information and this education is so important and so powerful that I'm not having quite enough of an impact just working one-on-one. And so that's when I really started to think, can I create a product that carries this really similar mission of healing through food? And then I could really ship it a lot farther and wider than I myself could ever reach. And if we could create this platform through this brand, then we would have a much more captivated audience to share this type of education that we really want to be sharing, whether that's on the sustainability front or the nutrition front. Overall, I would say we're really just trying to be the best to Mother Nature as we possibly can and learn as much from Mother Nature as we can. So I think that's another big element, is tapping back into what nature has already presented us with. And the further away we get from nature, the unhealthier we get. And the more we can take care of nature, the healthier we get, because we're only as healthy as where our food comes from.
Absolutely. And I loved how you made that extend into your packaging as well. That's awesome. So, like you said, you've used nutrition to heal yourself, and this is very personal for you. I know this is a big ask, but do you have any tips for someone who wants to get started on sort of a health and healing journey like that?
Yeah, I would say this is the best kind of practice that I have found to be successful, is thinking about crowding out your diet instead of taking things away. And so the more you can add something good into your daily habits and your daily routines, the better. And so instead of saying, remove or get rid of meat or get rid of dairy, just try incorporating more alternatives and, try and get an almond milk, or try and get an almond milk-based yogurt, or different things and see. And I think it's so exciting now, and it's easier than ever because there are so many great alternatives to some of our favorite things like ice cream. So it's becoming easier and easier to really remove meat and dairy and some of these other harmful ingredients from our diets. But I would say that's the biggest focus, is just try and work with as many different plants as you can on a daily basis, and just really focus on getting that instead of focusing on what you're not getting.
I love that. It's almost like gratitude, right? That's a very positive,
right.
A positive way to look at it instead of the opposite, which a lot of people, they remove everything and then they feel great, and then they don't really stick to it. So that's great advice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's helpful to know, and this is something that honestly I haven't even still gotten very good at myself, but that all or nothing mentality, like you're saying, people will eliminate 12 things at one time and really go for those dramatic results. And I see it in exercise as well. If I can't get an hour workout in and sweat, then it's not worth it. But something that, my yoga teacher in India, as well as my functional medicine doctor here, both always tell me is that it's so much better, like from a yoga perspective, it's so much better to practice just 15 minutes of yoga every single day than it is to practice for 2 hours twice a week. And that mentality is so hard for our society to grasp. I think we really want to see these quick, hard, big results, but it's the little changes that happen over time that make the biggest difference. And so if you can only incorporate, a salad once every day, that's better than, 2 days of 100% plant-based eating. It's just those little changes that have really powerful effects.
That's so true. And that could be as far as sustainability goes too. We always say progress over perfection, and each day is a new day to start. And I think if you reward yourself for that and just keep moving forward, you'll stick to it.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So do you think more people are focused on monitoring where their food is coming from, where their packaging is coming from? Do you see that shift?
Yeah, I do. We get more requests now than we used to about where certain ingredients come from and where our packaging comes from. And we, even recently I've gotten requests to see the certifications, which is really exciting to see that coming from consumers, because it means that they're very tapped in and they're really paying attention and understanding what's going on here. So, I think it's going to just be continued conversations, but as the generations get younger and younger, this is absolutely top of mind and what they care about, and we're seeing just, all the negative effects of what we're doing to our environment these days. And so I think it becomes more and more pressing as the generations get younger. And so I'm very optimistic that this will become more of the norm as we go on.
That's great and optimistic. So a lot of our listeners, Kailey, they are handling the end of life of a product. Do you have any advice for them on how to help with sort of the plastics issue, single use, from a designer and producer's perspective?
Yeah, that's the tough one. For us, I think the challenge was just finding a solution that existed, period, which seems to take a really long time. But it does seem to be helpful to just remove as much of the plastic as possible. So we're seeing that across the board just through our supply chain as well as our, end consumer packaging, that there can be plastics throughout the whole line of it. And so, we're starting to even look at requesting different things from suppliers and how it's shipped, or buying more things in bulk. So yeah, it's tough. And I think from the consumer perspective, it's just about really being aware that before you buy something, recognizing that you're going to have to be the one to dispose of that, and how do you feel about that, and do you have different solutions for kind of what you're picking up? Definitely.
And so starting a company in general is a tough undertaking. Anything you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think the most helpful thing I did was really surround myself with very experienced advisors and other founders that have gone through this journey as well. And I think my mistake was not doing that soon enough. So, I started as a solo founder. So there's a lot of people that will have co-founders, but especially when you're a lone founder, it can get very lonely, and you're making all of these decisions, and you can get very in your head about it. So yeah, having a group, or at least one advisor or mentor early on that has taken a company 0 to 1, 0 to a million, is kind of this really critical stage that not a lot of people have experience in. And I think people can get confused, so we're in the food business. Like, it'd be easy for me to maybe try and find an advisor that had worked at Kraft or some major, CPG food company. But that's not always helpful. It's actually a lot more helpful to find someone that has been a founder themselves and gone through the exact same types of challenges that you have, because they're so different in this early stage. So yeah, surrounding yourself and finding mentors that have been founders themselves or really been involved in the startup phase would be extremely helpful for avoiding some of the very common pitfalls that every founder goes through.
Absolutely, and that's great advice. So what's next for you and for Sacred Serve?
Yeah, this year we're looking at a lot of growth, so we're excited to be adding a ton of new doors this year. We've expanded from just the Midwest to really the East and West Coast, so we're working on building those out now. We'll have a couple new flavors. We just launched a new cookies and cream flavor that we're excited about. So yeah, we'll continue to really challenge the ingredients and the sourcing. Really, that's going on in our category right now, and then we're excited to just get this new packaging on as many shelves as we can and start really pushing on that front too.
Oh, that's amazing. And are you feeling pressured to move beyond gelato?
Yeah, we are. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily feeling pressured. I do always see a ton of, opportunity out there for new product innovation. It's also, I think founders can get in trouble here where it's so exciting to create new products, and we have all these ideas and all this technology behind us to make it happen. But it's good to remain kind of restrained and make sure that our core competency of ice cream is being received, and we can really come to market as this functional leader in the space. So for now, we're remaining focused on ice cream, but in the near term, there is a lot that we can do with this young coconut meat, which is the base of all of our flavors, which is something that I discovered while living abroad. And so this has a great nutritional profile when compared to coconut milk, and we can do all sorts of things with it. So yeah, there will be more innovation in the pipeline, but probably looking at 2022, 2023.
Oh, how exciting. And I love your focus.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a tough one, but I would say, those advisors come in handy because it's their experience for sure. That's recognizing, look, you really got to scale this up and have consumers really know you as being good at this one specific thing before you try and talk to them about something new.
It's brilliant. So for your launch of the new packaging, what are you aiming for in terms of percentage of all product? How much you can get into the container?
Yeah, so we can get 100% of our product into these containers now, and any future innovation we do, we're so fortunate that this technology and just the sustainable paperboard is applicable for a lot of different categories. So it's oven, heat safe, as all the way up to freezer safe, and so there's a ton of things that we can consistently work out and make sure that we're always having this type of sustainable packaging in the frozen set.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, it was worth your time, all of that due diligence you did for 4 years.
Exactly. It was very worth our time. And I agree. I'm just always surprised that it hasn't been done before. But again, just knowing what it takes, that this company went through 8 years to bring this to life and the cost of all of those certifications, it makes sense why this hasn't yet. And so 8 years ago, the conversation wasn't as pressing as it is now. So I think maybe there's going to be some new entrants coming out with new sustainable options here. So that'll be exciting too.
Oh, that will be exciting. I can't wait to see. So please tell us where we can buy Sacred Serve. I can't wait. And I know my son will want to try the cookies and cream.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have nationwide shipping from our website. So anyone in the U.S. can get it right now. And then we have retailers built out here in the Midwest, as well as a little bit in the Southeast and California right now. So our website, sacredserve.com, has a great store tracker for anyone looking to find a retailer in their area.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been so inspiring, and I give you so much credit for sticking with it and rolling this out. And I really hope you inspire a ton of other brands to get on board with sustainable packaging like this.
Thank you so much. I hope so too.
Well, thank you, Kailey, and enjoy the rest of your busy day.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you for listening. It would mean the world if you would take a moment to rate or review this podcast. And if you share it with us on one of our social networks, we are giving out some fun, nothing wasted podcast swag. So just tag us and see what you get. Thanks so much.